Greetings, one and all. Griffinlobster. Welcome back to my top 100 games of all time. And here we have arrived in the top 50. You've made it. You've made it through well over an hour of me talking about, probably well over an hour and a half of me talking about games. And you're still here for another half. You're only halfway there and you're still here. Well, that means a lot to me. So thank you for showing up. Today we're doing numbers 50 through 41. We're getting into the cream of the crop. Let's jump right in with number 50, The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. So out of all of the modern Elder Scrolls games, I'm talking not the archaic ones for PC only like Arena and Daggerfall. I'm talking Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, those three. This is the one that I got into last, actually. Oblivion was really the first one that really got me into the series. I played a little bit of Morrowind, but never got into it. And then obviously Skyrim is great, and we'll get to both of those games later. Spoiling that list again. But after that, I was just kind of hungry for more, and I decided to go back and check out Morrowind. I checked it out on PC this time instead of on the original Xbox. And I think it was a slower burn than Oblivion and Skyrim, because it doesn't hold your hand as much near the beginning. There's no fast and easy and free fast travel system available to you right from the start. There's more crunchy RPG aspects. There's actually dice rolls on whether you're even going to hit when you swing your sword. Stuff like that. Stuff that, and obviously the game's just dated. It doesn't look as nice. It doesn't invite you in and make you feel comfortable and at home, quite like Oblivion and Skyrim do. But once it got its hooks into me, it wouldn't let go for anything, just like all of the other Elder Scrolls games. They are such time toilets, man. Like, you'll just sit down, you'll start playing these games, clicking away, walking here, going there, getting this quest, and then all of a sudden, it's been 7 hours and you haven't eaten and you desperately need to urinate. These kind of games have a special kind of absorbent magic where you just need to spend time in them and just get completely lost in these worlds. I love the world of Morrowind. It's different, right? I think Oblivion and Skyrim go for a more straightforward fantasy feel, something that we've seen kind of a lot before, whereas Morrowind is this sort of strange, dusty, blasted land full of weird customs and weirder people. There is one city where an entire community lives in the gargantuan, hollowed-out shell of a long-dead crab. You have the city like Vivek, which is so gigantically huge and split up into different districts that it could take you like about 10 minutes just to get from like the top of one district to the bottom of another, just because it's so ridiculously gigantic. And it's this misty, mysterious world that has a strange mythology to it, and discovering how your character plays a part into it is engrossing and rewarding and just a whole heck of a lot of fun. Like I said, it's maybe going to take, especially if you've been mollycoddled by Oblivion and to a greater extent Skyrim, which really holds your hand in a lot of ways. You don't even have to commit to a build type in Skyrim. You're going to have to maybe have your wits about you here a little bit more, kind of go in with a pointed idea of what kind of build you're trying to make with your character, be it melee, magic, what have you, and then just kind of go that route. But I think once you maybe get over that first hump of user-friendliness, or unfriendliness as the case may be here, you're really going to get into it. And it's definitely worth going back and taking a look. I have sunk, I couldn't tell you how many hours in this game. And into the series as a whole, even more. So we will be hearing more from this series later on in the list, but for sure Morrowind earns its spot here at 50. Coming in at 49 is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. You again, buddy. You again. And not for the last time either. Boy, I remember the wait for Twilight Princess. Probably more than and the hype surrounding Twilight Princess. Just go back, if you have the spare time, go back onto YouTube and watch the E3 announcement of Twilight Princess. And just watch everyone go nuts. I mean, the audience loses their minds. They are so into this. The hype is so real. The energy is so electric. You can feel it even today, several Zelda games later. And honestly, it gives me goosebumps when I watch it, just because the sheer love for that series is so clearly on display there. And I think they went back for a darker, more Ocarina of Time style approach to presenting the game world with Twilight Princess after the comparatively cartoonish and some would argue childish look of Wind Waker. I think that was a lot of what the hype felt, what would generate a lot of the hype, because like, wow, this looks like a game for adults. And, you know, it delivered. It's just another solid entry in the Zelda series. Great game world. I love Midna as a character. I love turning into a wolf. I love the dungeons in this thing. A lot of the boss fights are great. Adding to the arsenal of cool Zelda items, you have the spinner, which is this skateboard gear that you ride around. I don't know how they came up with that, but it weirdly works, and especially in the dungeon that's sort of built around that mechanic and that item. Then you have the ridiculous wrecking ball, this huge ball and chain that you swing around that that Link just stores in his little back pocket, just like everything else, despite the fact that it's this boulder-sized metal sphere. But no, storing it back there, no problem. And yeah, I like the dark approach of the game. The entire world feels intimidating and mysterious, and like you're fighting against powers that you don't completely understand. And I think that's attractive in a game like this. And I mean, it's Zelda, right? Tried and true formula. Don't need to defend it anymore. So there you go. Coming in at 48 is The Witness, another game by Jonathan Blow. We saw Braid earlier, two videos ago, talked about Braid. I like The Witness a little bit better, and I think The Witness is definitely a game that's not for everyone. For starters, it launched as a $40 game, a $40 puzzle game, which already people were like, what, are you serious? And the lion's share of the gameplay in this game are line puzzles. Where you have essentially a maze, and you're drawing a line, and there's one answer. And once you figure that out, maybe you go on and do another panel. And you're on this small island, gorgeous island, by the way. And you can kind of walk around, mostly free. There's a few places that are gated to you right on the outset. I mean, you have to do a little tutorial area first, but then after that, you're pretty well on your own. And it incorporates the game world into some of these panels a little bit. And there are some other puzzles that are like even deeper and more mysterious that when you discover for the first time, I'll never forget when I discovered there's like this entire other class of puzzles that I don't want to spoil at all. But like you might just try it. You might just try something, and when you figure out that you can do this, it was an aha moment that rivals some of the most poignant memories I've ever had in games, period. And just that moment alone earns it this spot on this list. But for something that's so simple, seemingly so simple, line puzzles on an island, there's a strange amount of depth here and engagement that I have here. A lot of these puzzles will have symbols on them, and the game doesn't communicate to you anything in terms of game mechanics, really. You just kind of have to figure it all out on your own. Like, you don't know what the symbol means, well, maybe you'll have to figure it out. Maybe you haven't been to the area that tutorializes what that symbol means yet. And just learning all the mechanics, learning the vocabulary of the puzzles, forming this in your mind is incredibly addictive and engrossing. And I loved this game. I sort of classify it in my mind along with Fez, because I also used a pen and paper to solve some of the puzzles in this game, because some of them are pretty brutally difficult. But it's just serene and quiet and strangely beautiful. And it's not, like I said, definitely not a game for anyone, but if it sounds like something you might enjoy, please check it out. I don't hear people talking about it a lot. I love it. It's one of my favorite games from 2016. I think is when it came out. Yeah, 2016. So, Witness. Coming in at number 47 is Red Dead Redemption, Rockstar's ode to the Wild Wild West. Of course, Red Dead Redemption 2 will be coming out later this year, and I'm quite excited for it. This is, for my money, Rockstar's greatest story, I think, that they've yet told. I really enjoy the character of John Marston. I like the setting and the way that it plays with the idea of the Wild West sort of kind of being on its way out. It takes place like 1911, which would definitely be near the dying end of the Wild West. Civilization is arriving, and that old way of thinking, that old chaotic pseudo-society is falling by the wayside. And a character like John Marston, a rugged cowboy, ex-outlaw sort of being conned by the powers of justice into hunting down his old posse of bandits is just a really great story, and I like the characters a lot. Obviously, the gameplay is great. They know how to design an open world. They always do, and you'd think that it would feel sort of empty, just being in a Wild West with a few settlements around and a lot of open wasteland in between, but it doesn't. It feels populated and interesting and surprising to explore. And it delivers a game experience that you're not really going to find a whole lot elsewhere. So for that, it's still definitely worth checking out, and I am beyond excited for the sequel, which is going to drop later this year in about a month and some change. So definitely excited for that. Red Dead Redemption. Rockstar just makes great games. They've applied their expertise to several different genres, and they nailed it with the Western here. There you go. All right, coming in at number 46 is Super Metroid. This was number 31 on my list of 50. I also think I forgot to mention Twilight Princess was 28 on my list of 50, by the way. Super Metroid was number 31 on my list of 50, so it's dropped a little bit. It's been a long time since I've played Super Metroid, right? But Super Metroid is, for many people, I know it's a lot of people's absolute favorite game, full stop, no questions asked. And I understand that. I think I maybe got to it a little bit late for it to rank that high for me, but I definitely get it. I love the approach to the game world. I like how you can sequence break the game if you feel so inclined. If you know the game well enough and understand its sort of hidden mechanics, that you can really sort of bust it wide open. And that's something cool and sort of a risk that the developers had to take when making this game. And it really is I think it's really the game that most people point to as the one that really put Metroid and Samus on the map. I think the original Metroid and Metroid 2, I think a lot of people still respect those games, but I think Super Metroid is the one where it really all came together, and they married that presentation with the gameplay in a way that is attractive and truly timeless. Going back and playing the original Metroid still feels a little bit like a chore. Going back and playing this just feels like going back and playing an awesome classic game. And I really think it's still great today. I think that in terms of 2D Metroids, they maybe even have yet to top it. I liked Zero Mission a lot. I liked Fusion quite a bit. Most recently, Metroid Samus Returns, the remake of Metroid 2, very good. I never played AM2R, of course, the fan-made remake of Metroid 2, but for my money, this is the best 2D Metroid, and I've played it several times and could play it again right now because it's just that immediately attractive of a game. So definitely earns its spot here. 45 is Donkey Kong Country 2. This didn't make the list because I must have been high in 2008. Donkey Kong Country 2 is an incredible 2D platformer game that takes that interesting art style where you almost feel like you're playing like 3D models but sort of pasted onto a 2D world. It takes that art style, ramps up to 11, makes it better looking, and I really think sort of hones the gameplay from the original Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country, the biggest problem with Donkey Kong Country 1 is Donkey Kong. I don't like playing as him. He's slow, and he just doesn't feel as satisfying to play as. I almost always would switch to Diddy if when I was playing Donkey Kong, and unfortunately, if you get hit, if you forever whatever reason are playing as Donkey Kong and you get hit, you lose Diddy, and then you only have Donkey Kong. That's even worse. So they fixed that game by keeping Donkey Kong in the title only, and so this is Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, who feel relatively similar to play, have slight changes, but make the platforming feel like you're more capable of tackling some of these difficult platforming challenges. And boy, when I mean difficult, I mean difficult. This game throws down the gauntlet in terms of how hard it is, especially if you get that secret bonus world at the end. Just brutally hard. But in terms of classic platforming challenges, I mean, I feel like in every list of 10, I feel like there's been at least one platformer, and this is no exception. It's just a phenomenal game from the Super Nintendo library, and in my opinion, the pinnacle of the Donkey Kong Country series. So, Donkey Kong Country 2, without Donkey Kong. Who cares? Not missing him. Coming in at number 44. Oh my, how the mighty have fallen. 44 is Final Fantasy VII. This was number 3 on my list of 50 in 2008. Number 3. This was my third favorite game of all time back in 2008. And I still stand by that. Yeah, I do. I think back then, I was relatively new to the game. I had a lot of friends who really respected and loved the game, so I was constantly talking about it with them. Advent Children had just come out, which sort of brought me back into those characters, into the back of that gaming world, added an epilogue to the story. And some would argue that that movie's not very good, and I imagine if I went back and watched it again these days, it probably wouldn't hold up particularly well. Just like going back and playing Final Fantasy VII doesn't hold up particularly well. I'm glad that I went back and played it again last year, just for the sake of this list, because it sort of disillusioned me a little bit. I still think the game is great. There are a lot of aspects of it that are completely timeless. I think the story is still pretty good. There are a few moments that maybe don't translate so well these days, like the cross-dressing bit kind of early on. And I actually think that the part of the game when you're in Midgar, which honestly, like, the first time I played Final Fantasy VII, I thought the whole game would take place in Midgar, in this city. But then once you finally get out of there, I really think the game opens up and becomes a little bit better. Although some people prefer the Midgar bits, because it's more sort of story-driven and story beats and stuff like that. There are some stuff that I think, obviously the gameplay is a little dated, the graphics certainly dated. My goodness, that game looks terrible. But the music is still great, completely timeless, I think. I think maybe the thing that I've been impressed about the most going back and playing it is how it builds up the mythos of its antagonist. I think one of the reasons Sephiroth is remembered so fondly as a villain isn't necessarily because of, you know, his motivations or the things that he says, but the way that the game sort of builds the tension around him. The way that for a lot of the beginning of the game you're following this bloody trail where you just know that he is like beyond powerful, like super level powerful, and you sort of see him as this ultimate goal, and you just know obviously that at some point you're going to have to take on this guy, and the odds seem completely stacked against you. And the way that it builds that tension and drama is basically perfect. And I think that's one of the best parts about this game. So, yeah, it's a game that is super important for a lot of different reasons. It's beloved for a lot of different reasons. That remake will come out maybe before I die. In the meantime, though, going back and playing that game might seem a little bit dated, but if you're willing to look for it, if you're willing to look past the parts that haven't aged as well, I think you'll find something there that's definitely worth enjoying. Maybe not worth putting at number 3, but certainly worth putting at number 44. Now, for number 43, we have Portal 2. Hi, GLaDOS. Hi, Chell. How you guys doing back there? Arguing, no doubt. Boy, Valve, please come back and make some games, because Portal 2 is so great. I'm maybe even disbelieving my own list here. This seems almost low for me, 43. Maybe I should have put it higher. I don't know. But Portal 2 continues the story of Portal. I mean, the story of Portal was pretty simple and short, right? But Portal 2 really digs in to the world of Aperture Laboratories, the backstory of Aperture Laboratories, the backstory of GLaDOS, the relationship between GLaDOS and Chell, who's basically just a silent protagonist. But you get to be her, so it's kind of like you're the protagonist. They do the same thing with Freeman in the Half-Life series. But the fact that they sort of really brought it all together into this one package where it feels like a complete story, a complete game, whereas like Portal really felt at times more just like a demo or a tech demo. Still great, obviously. Portal 2 took the game world, expanded upon it, added a few new mechanics, populated it with characters both old and beloved and new and newly beloved. I love Cave Johnson, love Wheatley, both amazing additions to the game. And it's a hilarious game. It's never not satisfying to play with portals. It's always fun, and the way that it incorporates the new mechanics as well, it's a slam dunk of a game. I absolutely love Portal 2, and every time I think about it, I just am so sad that Valve doesn't make games anymore. Please make games again. make more games like Portal 2. Coming in at number 42 is Mass Effect 2. This, to me, is the best of the Mass Effect series. When I think of Mass Effect, I think of a sprawling, epic sci-fi adventure, a space opera, really, that just doesn't, that really can't be beat in terms of scope and how real and deep that the lore goes with this world. And I think of one cohesive narrative where your matters in previous games trickle down and affect the decisions that you make in early games trickle down and affect what happens in later games and the decisions that are available to you then. And I really envision them as this one big story across 3 games. And that approach to narrative is impressive to me, and really as I think stood the test of time. I think if you go back and look at Mass Effect 1, it's for more hardcore RPG aspect that I don't think is easily accessible. If you look at Mass Effect 3, kind of screw the pooch with the ending a little bit. I think Mass Effect 2 is sort of that perfect middle piece that feels right, that almost has that Empire Strikes Back feel to it, where the odds are so super stacked against you that kind of can end on a terrible note. The entire game, I mean, the game opens with your character dying, and then you're resurrected, and then you're building towards this final mission, which is, they call it the suicide mission throughout the game, because if you screw it up badly enough, every character in the game can die. So it really piles on the tension and the stakes, and it does so while keeping the world cohesive and believable, and just a beautiful place to be and spend time in. I really want BioWare to try and capture something like this again. I'm excited for Anthem, which is coming out. I'm excited to see what they do with that. Andromeda, unfortunately, was a complete and total fail, but Mass Effect 2 is pretty much timeless for me. So thank you for that. And finally, in today's video, we're taking a look at number 41, which is Metal Gear Solid 3. So Metal Gear Solid 2, I think, really sort of blew me away with its novel and subversive approach to narrative, whereas Metal Gear Solid 3 kind of smartly, I think, left that convoluted, ridiculous narrative of the future or the present and went all the way back into the past and told the origin story of Big Boss. And just told a basically straightforward story, but did so super well. And I don't know why, but it still suffers from a lot of the problems that I think that Metal Gear Solid 1 does, with its long-winded cutscenes and its sort of campy approach to its villains and whatnot. But it just kind of works for me. I don't know why. Maybe I just have slowly grown to love the series. Maybe I should go back and play Metal Gear Solid 1 again and sort of discover that I suddenly love the game and it's my favorite thing ever. But Metal Gear Solid 3, I played through once and immediately just jumped right back in and played again. I really liked learning all the different mechanics of that game. Liked all the little nooks and crannies that the gameplay has. Little hidden mechanics here and there. I appreciated the abandoning of the Soliton radar from the first 2 games, which almost made the game feel a little automatic and too easy, where I was like constantly looking up into the upper right corner at that radar, like, okay, here's their vision cone, I gotta wait for them, I know exactly how this works, I know exactly where everyone is. Whereas in this game, you have to be much more careful, much more observant and quieter and stealthy and tactical in your approach. And that, for me, feels a lot better. I like the CQC that they added into this game. The close quarters combat always feels good to grab a guy by the back of his head and slam him into the ground. He's just immediately out cold. I could do that all day. That's just a whole heck of a lot of fun. And it tells a pretty darn good story. I mean, admittedly campy and cheesy in areas, but I think the fact that it's just so dedicated and serious in the way that it approaches its camp, I just can't help but love it. And this is a game where there is a boss there's this old man that you fight. He's a sniper, and it's this crazy, awesome, epic battle that can take 45 minutes to complete if you do it legit. Or you can, I mentioned he was an old guy, right? Or you can turn off the game, leave it be for a whole week, come back to it, and when you turn the game on, the boss will have died of old age. Is that not just like one of the craziest things you've ever heard. Like, when that was revealed to me, I was like, this game is brilliant. Like, what other game does that sort of thing? Just nuts. Hideo Kojima is obviously a household name for a reason, and this is absolutely part of that reason. Metal Gear Solid 3 is just so great. So there you go. There's my list so far. That was 50 through 41. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you back next time, hopefully, for numbers 40 through 31. We're getting into the thick of it now, so I hope you tune in for that one too. Thanks for watching.